Happy holidays, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Everything Zen, where we discuss everything in the Zenescope universe, from Van Helsing and Grimm Spotlight to Conspiracy, Gretel, and so much more. This is Zenescope. I'm your host, Mark Sells, and we're happy to have you along with us for our second season of Everything Zen. It's December, the stockings have been hung by the chimney with care, chestnuts are roasting on an open fire, and we're talking about myths and legends. Perhaps there's no greater legend this month than that of St. Nicholas, aka Santa Claus, whose story dates back to 280 AD in what today would now be Turkey. St. Nicholas was a monk who traveled the countryside handing out coins and treats to children while assisting the poor and the sick, and whose legend was cemented in 1822 in a children's poem by Clement Clarke Moore called A Visit from St. Nicholas, which is popularly known today as 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. The poem not only defines Santa's key characteristics, but also that he drove a sleigh of 8 tiny reindeer. Now, how many legends do you know of that have a connection with a soft drink? Sporting green, brown, blue, and even tan outfits, it wasn't until 1931 and an expert advertising campaign by Coca-Cola that Santa became known for his red and white suit, selling Coke products in their trademark colors. We've got lots more in the way of myths and legends to cover on this podcast. We'll have our podcast Word of the Month prizes coming up shortly, and Amber will be stopping by to spread some holiday cheer with some fun facts about another popular December legend, Krampus. Plus, she'll have some myths and legends to share in the newly anointed Amber's Attic. And everyone's favorite Yuletide hero, Santa Joe, co-founder Joe Brusha, will be here to discuss the origin and evolution of the Myths and Legends series here at Zenescope. And later, we'll sit down with legendary actors Angela Cartwright and Bill Mumy from the sci-fi classic series Lost in Space. The two co-wrote a brand new book looking back at the series entitled Lost and Found in Space. And we'll hop onto the Jupiter 2 to explore all the details with them. In the meantime, we've got a festive and fun show for you filled with myths, legends, and plenty of good cheer. So deck the halls and all that jazz. This edition of Everything Zen is about to jingle all the way. Who doesn't love dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh? O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. It may be chilly outside, but come inside, pull up a chair, and join us by the fire. We're talking about myths and legends, and when it comes to myths and legends, it's easy to get the two confused. Myths are part of the folklore genre that consist of stories and beliefs that are integral to society and attempt to explain a natural or social phenomenon. The main characters in myths are usually non-humans, such as gods, demigods, and other supernatural figures. Unlike myths, which aren't based in fact and are more symbolic in terms of their storytelling, legends do contain some facts and have a historical basis. But those facts can be exaggerated or romanticized to the point where the characters take on a larger-than-life quality. While myths tend to focus on gods and divine beings, legends are the stories of real people with superpowers and heroic deeds. Some examples of mythical characters range from Poseidon and Hades to Aphrodite, Zeus, and Ares. Examples of legends range from Robin Hood to King Arthur to Johnny Appleseed, Paul Bunyan, and, as mentioned previously, the beloved Santa Claus. In January 2011, Zenescope released the very first edition of Myths and Legends. Following the epic events in Grimm Fairy Tales number 50, the creatures from the realm of mist have escaped into our world and are about to create major havoc on Earth. That is, unless Red Riding Hood, aka Brittany Waters, has anything to say about it. The initial run of Myths and Legends and its various arcs featured some of the characters from Zenescope's early Grimm fairy tales line, such as The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Hansel and Gretel. And it lasted 25 issues through February 2013. After a 7-year hiatus, in 2020, Myths and Legends made a valiant return, not as an episodic series, but as a series of quarterly one-shots featuring various characters, starting with Ares and going through the Dark Princess, Gretel Witch Hunter, Dragon Clan, Blood Pharaoh, and this month, Mystère, filling in more of her backstory in Prophecy. Creator and co-founder Joe Brusha will be here momentarily to discuss the early beginnings of Myths and Legends as well as the future direction of the series. But before we bring him on, let's find out what Myths and Legends-oriented prizes are available if you enter our December podcast Word of the Month contest. 'Tis the season to be jolly. We're doling out prizes like Santa to all podcast Word of the Month entries on the nice list. It's our podcast Word of the Month contest for December. So whenever you hear this sound, during the podcast, we'll reveal a secret word or phrase. All you have to do to enter is email us at info@zenescope.com with that word or phrase, and you could win any number of really cool prizes. Celebrating Myths and Legends this month, our first place prize is a Myths and Legends gift pack of all the current one-shots, from Ares to this month's Prophecy. 6 incredible stories with over 70 pages each. Second place will receive the Myths and Legends Volume 3 graphic novel, which covers the entire Beauty and the Beast story arc. And lastly, we'll have some really cool discount codes for our third place submissions as well. Just one entry per person, so listen very carefully and email us at info@zenescope.com for your chance to win. The podcast contest runs throughout all of December, so you can send an email to info@zenescope.com any day or time up until Friday, December 31st, which is New Year's Eve. The winners will all be contacted the first week in January. When our next guest is not riding in a big red sleigh or sliding down chimneys and delivering toys, he's leading our Zenescope workshop up in the North Pole. I mean, Horsham, Pennsylvania. He's Santa Joe, our co-founder and president, the legendary Joe Brusha. Joe laid the foundation for Myths and Legends, and we're going to jump right in and find out how the series came to be, what his favorite myths and legends are, and what the future holds for the likes of Blood Pharaoh, Dragon Clan, the Dark Princess, and so many more. We're here in December with co-founder, creator, and dare I say, legend, Joe Brusha. Welcome back to the podcast, Joe.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to be here. A legend, probably in a bad way, I would think.
Well, going back to 2011, what was the original concept or pitch behind Myths and Legends, and how did it originally differ from Grimm fairy tales?
So with Grimm fairy tales, we were really focusing on sky and, keeping with the kind of fairy tale, I guess, overarching theme. And with Myth and Legends, we wanted to take the characters that we had introduced in Grimm fairy tales and expand on their storylines and put them kind of in their own stories to expand the universe a little bit more. So we would focus on, for example, Brittany, who's our Red Riding Hood character, and give her own story arc, so that could expand that universe.
Right. And it was launched in January of 2011. It had an initial run that went through issue 25 in February 2013, but then went on a 7-year hiatus until last year with the release of Myths and Legends Quarterly featuring Ares. Why did the series stop, and how did it come back?
Well, I think probably the main reason is the sales weren't great, and I think that we just didn't have enough I guess, enough stuff to do. It was kind of like we'd run out of ideas. The universe wasn't as big, and then over the last 7 years, it's grown even bigger. And now we're doing it more in a one-shot format. So it's a little bit easier to kind of, I guess, get the momentum going. We're doing it quarterly, and it's the same idea. Let's expand the universe and focus on characters that we don't see that often in the regular titles, like Robin Hood, Belle, and Van Helsing. But I think it was a combination of probably just the sales were a little bit flat, and we had run out of ideas and characters at that point. And then over the last couple of years, we pulled it back up again, so we're ready to jump back into it.
Some of the characters, like Blood Pharaoh, are new. Others, like Gretel and Mystere, have their own series, yet find themselves in Myths and Legends. How do their stories fit into Myths and Legends as opposed to their own series? And is there like a common thread that connects these stories together?
The only common thread I would say is, they're all part of our expanded Grimm Fairy Tales universe. I think that this series is a good way to tell stories that wouldn't appear in our regular series, where sometimes they're connected. But really, it's a good way to introduce new characters. For example, you mentioned Ares, and he's a really cool character, but he doesn't have his own series. We haven't really fleshed out his character or told his backstory the way we want to. So that gives us a good opportunity in this series, Myths and Legends, to do that. And like Bloodflower was just a cool idea that we had thought about as a character, had a little bit of backstory, but we didn't have any kind of specific series we could introduce him in. So we do it in a one shot, make it its own story, and try and get some new characters into the universe.
Myths and Legends, they continue to end on cliffhangers. Blood Pharaoh, Dragon Clan, The Dark Princess, the latest Prophecy. They end with to be continued or this is not the end. When will readers get some closure on these stories?
Probably never. We want to keep coming back to keep buying the new series. But I think the idea behind it is they'll get closure in our regular series. These are the idea behind a lot of our new publishing initiative that we started this year was easy stories to pick up, one shots that you don't need to know a whole lot about if you're a new reader. You can pick it up, get a full story, learn about some of the characters, and then if you're interested and you liked what you read, it's easy to jump into our expanded series, like a Robin Hood, like a Belle, like a Van Helsing. And a lot of times, those characters that you read in Myths and Legends will appear there, and their stories will be fleshed out and finished. For example, like Dark Princess, our plan is to probably wrap up her story arc this year in between Robin Hood and Van Helsing and Belle, our regular bi-monthly series, coupled with some annuals, wrap everything up. So also our plan at some point is to release all of these stories in graphic novel format, and it won't be a linear story. It'll be all of the different pieces put together into a complete story arc.
Do you have a favorite myth and or legend?
Specifically of what we've put out, or just Myths and Legends in general?
Well, let's start out with Myths and Legends in general, and then we'll get to the books that we put out.
I wouldn't say I have a favorite. I love, I love folklore and different myths. And, for example, there's a new, I don't know if you saw it, but there's a new Bigfoot on the Proof Is Out There TV series. They've expanded and kind of digitized the old Patterson-Gimlin tape. And they found some new evidence. It's really cool. So the Bigfoot myth and legend is always interesting to me because I don't know, for some reason I find it interesting. And then, they don't really have any evidence of this creature existing except for this one kind of crazy film. And it's kind of spawned this whole 50-year pursuit and nobody's ever found anything. So I find that interesting. That's probably maybe my favorite myth. The guys in the office sometimes make fun of me because of Bigfoot. They actually call me Bigfoot. So, but for our specific series, I really like Mystere as a character. maybe I'm partial because I've been writing her stories lately, but I just think she's a really cool character with a lot of depth and a lot of complexity. And we've really just started to scratch the surface of what she's going to be as a character. So I would say that she's probably my favorite character that we've introduced in this series.
And what do you like most about Prophecy, which just released this month?
I kind of like the juxtaposition of Mystere's trying to be a hero, but her power is anchored in darkness, and she's constantly has to battle that. She's literally controlling the undead and spirits, and again, if you read the series and some of the upcoming stuff, she gets her powers come from a dark place. So, how does she strive to stay good when she's constantly being corrupted? And kind of her partner in crime, Talisman, who's also in the series, his is the same thing. His power comes from a dark place, and every time he uses it, he falls further into that kind of abyss. So I think that's a really interesting situation where you have people who are trying to fight against their darker nature and be good using those powers. So I find that very interesting.
Last one for you. What storylines will be explored in 2022, and what can you tell us about the future of Myths and Legends?
Well, I think that it'll be more of the same. We'll pick a lot of characters that either have, and we're just planning out some of the 2022 schedule right now. A lot of it is done, but we're still finalizing it, so I can't really give anything away there. But it'll be more of the same. We'll introduce some new characters. We'll definitely expand more on the Dark Princess storyline. It kind of depends on, we're about to have our story meeting next month. So what the most interesting characters we come up with, or the most interesting storylines we think to go through with. But a lot of it will center on these kind of Children of Darkness, which has been introduced in the Mystere storyline. And it's also bleeding over into Robin Hood. And again, the Dark Princess saga, we've got to kind of wrap up. So I think those will be the main anchor points for that series next year.
Excellent. Well, Joe, as always, thank you so much for joining us. Happy holidays.
Thanks, Mark. Same to you.
If you'd like to learn more about Myths and Legends, stop by Zenescope.com, and midway down the homepage, you'll see a section entitled Myths and Legends 101. It's got all of the latest quarterly issues, plus volumes 3, 4, and 5 in graphic novel form. It's a great way to catch up on Ares, Gretel, Mystere, and more over the holiday season. Moving forward now, let's take a look at some of the exciting events coming up on the Zenescope calendar for December 2021. The 2021 Holiday Advent Zen Box is still available, and it includes limited editions from Chris Delara, Carla Cohen, and John Royal. Plus, lots of special and unique gifts consisting of art prints, comics, graphic novels, metal cards, and lots more. Even though we're already into December, they're great collectibles, limited to just 400, and they make for incredible gifts for yourself, your family, and friends. Plus, if you haven't already picked up a Halloween Advent Zen Box, we still have a few of those left. Both the Halloween and the Holiday Advent Zen Box have connecting covers from Mike Crone. New releases this month on Wednesdays, and highlighted on Amber's new Comic Wednesday series on YouTube and Facebook, include Myths and Legends Prophecy, featuring Mystere, the 2021 holiday special of Grimm Universe Presents, which is dripping with holiday fear and flesh-eating demons. Everyone's favorite archer and beast hunter are back in Robin Hood, Hellfire Club, and Bell Killzone. And at the end of the month, don't miss another exciting installment of Grimm Fairy Tales as Sky, our guardian of the Nexus, continues to make her way through a cyber-enhanced world in Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 2, number 55. The new metal comic, metal cards, and sticker set have all been released for December and are available for subscription on Zenescope.com. And the last of the serial cosplay covers from Paul Green, featuring the Black Knight and a bowl full of Camelot crisps, is available via subscription and will be available individually and as a Z-rated showcase toward the end of the month. Mike DeBalfo is our December Featured Artist of the Month, and that means new art prints, stickers, and metal cards. And all throughout December, we're counting down the days with our 12 Days of Christmas sales, featuring spectacular savings on specific items. Things like World Tour collectibles, magnets, holiday special single issues, and graphic novels. Stay tuned to your email for the latest. And if you're not a subscriber and would like to receive our emails, drop us a line at info@zenescope.com and we'll add you to our mailing list. Also, be sure and check out the Van Helsing versus the Tree Monster art print on Zenescope.com in support of the Season of Giving. Proceeds from each print are going to One Tree Planted, helping reforestation efforts all around the world. And finally, don't miss the December Movie Club live stream on Friday, December 17th. Hosted by our very own Ralph Tedesco, along with our esteemed movie-watching panel consisting of Brian O'Halloran, Marilyn Gigliotti, Sun Kumanaki, and Crystal Starr. This month's feature is Silent Night, Deadly Night, a highly controversial film upon its initial release in 1984 that has Santa Claus going on a rampage, and well-known film critic Gene Siskel publicly condemning the film by telling its producers, "Shame on you." All of that can only mean one thing. It will be a fascinating discussion. So don't miss it, Friday, December 17th at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Tonya? Bird? Nick, get up. Oh my God, is this blood? Oh no, oh, Tonya? Gina, keep running. It's turning towards you. I never imagined it could be so real. Gina, hurry. Gina. Damn it. Line and cut. That was an excerpt from today's featured Myth and Legend story in Amber's Attic, aka Chris's Corner. Grimm Fairy Tales Myth and Legends Volume 4 was written by Troy Brownfield. It features brother and sister, Gina and Hank, as notorious TV ghost hunters. As they travel to infamous locations to prove or disprove supernatural activity, the two decide to head to the small town to investigate the witch's den, and the truth they find is much more terrifying than they could have ever imagined. This graphic novel includes Grimm Fairy Tales Myth and Legends issues 18 through 21, and a special reprint of Grimm Fairy Tales number 3, Hansel and Gretel, so you'll get a little backstory. It also has a sneak peek of Robin Hood number 1. There are a handful of covers by your favorite artists, including Jamie Tyndall, Nia Ruffino, Ali Garza, Elias Chadzudis, and many, many more. Now, it's hard for this brother and sister duo to find the truth when they have been lying about Gina's abilities for years. And the whole trip to the witch's den? That's just a ploy to get ratings. Told from Gina's perspective, she seems to be over the lies, but it might be a little too late. And by too late, could be too late for everyone involved. Get Myth and Legends Volume number 4 for $15.99 on our web store right now. This way, you'll be able to find out who is really behind the camera.
Now, for those listening for our podcast Word of the Month, I'm going to channel Barney Stinson, played by Neil Patrick Harris in How I Met Your Mother, when he says, "It's going to be legend, wait for it," and I hope you're not lactose intolerant because the second half of the word is dairy. Legendary. The word for December is legendary. If you were a child growing up in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, and a fan of science fiction, you're probably very familiar with our featured guests. Starring as Will and Penny Robinson on the hit television series Lost in Space, Bill Mumy and Angela Cartwright were everyone's favorite space siblings. The show followed the adventures of the Robinsons, a family of space colonists who struggled to survive on their journey to an Earth-like planet orbiting the star Alpha Centauri. Both Bill and Angela have had illustrious careers in music, photography, and art, and in the world of acting have worked with legends in the industry, everyone from Alfred Hitchcock to Jimmy Stewart, Paul Newman to Sidney Poitier. In fact, Angela was one of the Von Trapps in The Sound of Music with Julie Andrews. Underneath some prosthetics, Bill was in all 5 seasons of Babylon 5 and narrated A&E's Emmy Award-winning series Biography. This month, the 2 longtime friends have joined forces on a nostalgia tour of Lost in Space, co-authoring Lost and Found in Space, the Expanded Edition, an incredible book filled with tons of photos and cherished memories of their time working on the popular series. I sat down with the 2 talents to discuss their careers, their family on Lost in Space, and how this amazing collection came about. Here's what they had to say. Well, first of all, I want to extend a warm welcome to Angela and Bill for joining us today on our December edition of Everything Zen.
Great.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Both of you got your start in acting at a very early age, and from different backgrounds and upbringings, it had to be a little different than it is now, maybe a lot less accessible. How did each of you end up in the industry?
Ladies first.
Oh, thank you. Well, total accident. I was born in England. We came to America to follow the American dream my parents had. They were working days and nights, and our next door neighbor had kids that were in commercials. And she said, "Oh, your kids are cute." I have a sister, Veronica. And she said, "You should go see this agent," because at the time there were not a lot of children that were in the business. And she's looking for people to handle. And so we went to see her. She signed us. I went on my first interview and I got it for Sparklets Water. And
Wow.
from then it was just nonstop because I got on the Danny Thomas show and that went for 7 years.
Amazing.
So that was the start of my life.
Bill, how about you?
Well, I was a West LA kid with no siblings, and my parents had me late in life. I broke my leg when I was 4 years old playing Zorro, and I lived on a little cul-de-sac where there was a kid almost my age every house. It was kind of like the Little Rascals, and I couldn't go out and play for a couple of months because I was in this big cast. So I just waited for, like the Mickey Mouse Club and certain television shows to come on every day. And it was really Superman, George Reeves as Superman, and Guy Williams as Zorro, both caped adventurers that kind of lit some kind of strange, soulful pilot light within me. And I just knew that that's what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to be like Zorro and Superman and get inside the television set. My mom had worked at 20th Century Fox Studio as a secretary, a writer's secretary, for 10 years before she married my dad. My parent and my grandfather, who had passed away before I was born, was an agent in the 30s and 20s and mostly handled writers and directors, but he handled Boris Karloff, got him the Frankenstein audition and negotiated his deals. And my family was not impressed with or intimidated by show business. And I had a genuine urge to make that happen. So my father basically said, well, if you check it out, if you follow it out, you go with him and he's having a good time. What the hell? And then, you can't escape your destiny. My mom put me on a television show that everybody could have, civilians did. It was called Romper Room, which was a regional nursery school kind of show. But she did that first, which I thought was kind of smart, to see how I would feel or react underneath the lights with the camera.
Today, people decide they want to be in show business and, they understand it more. I mean, we didn't even have a television. So,
Right.
That was kind of, it was also curious and definitely fate for me. And probably Bill. I mean, who knows? You never know if you're going to get a part or not.
Both of you almost immediately started working with legends. I mean, Angela's over here working with Paul Newman, Rock Hudson, Sidney Poitier, and you mentioned Danny Thomas. And Bill, you're working with Gene Kelly, Jack Palance, Richard Kimball, Bridget Bardot. what are some of your favorite memories from your earliest works working with these amazing talents?
Well, some of my favorite memories are falling in love with, Shirley Jones and Connie Stevens and Elizabeth Montgomery and Bridget Bardot. And those were some of my favorite memories, yeah, because I definitely fell in love with all of them. We had amazing.
Every young boy's dream, I should say.
Yes. Very
Yeah,
young.
But believe me, I was aware of it. We, both of us, speaking for both of us, I mean, we have very unique careers, as starting with with so much, being so prolific, working so prolifically from such an early beginner's age. And obviously there was no internet, there was no DVRs. There were 3 television stations in the country and a few regional ones that went off the air in the evening. There just wasn't nearly as much product being made, but it was the birth of television, and we were a part of that. And one of the things about classic television is, because it basically was pioneered from theater, you had a cast of actors that kept working week after week. Whereas in today's world, the pool of talent is so much bigger that you don't really see the equivalent of, Cloris Leachman on a Western, and then the next week, Cloris Leachman on a cop show, and then the next week, Cloris Leachman in a doctor show, and then the next week, Cloris Leachman in a comedy show. I mean, but there was this smaller pool, and we all worked very prolifically.
Yeah, that's true.
Angela, what did you learn most from working with a lot of these folks early on? I mean, you were on The Sound of Music. I mean, amazing.
Yeah, the Danny Thomas Show was probably my biggest, education in showbiz. We did the show live every week on Thursdays. So Monday was script reading, Tuesday was blocking, Wednesday we did a camera run through with 3 cameras. And Thursday we came in at 1:00 and we shot until late, and there was a live audience. I mean, it was like doing a play with a new show every week. And that is an education. Also, Danny was, he used to change up the lines. He taught me to, listen for the laugh and not talk over it. There were a lot of tips that I learned, hitting my mark without looking at it. All those things, it was like an education every day. And, I started on that show when I was 4. So, it went for 7 years. That's, a long time. And then from that went into The Sound of Music, which was great because there were other kids. And I became fast friends with Heather, who was the next girl up. And that was a year of shooting. We went to Austria, and it was like just a big play date. Though we worked very, very hard because we had 3 months of rehearsal where we learned the songs and the dance routines. It's a job, even though you're a kid and you can only work a certain amount of hours, 8 hours, it's still a job, and you have the responsibility of bringing it,
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I would say that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say it is the thing that's very much underplayed is the fact that you might be a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, but just because you want to go, no, I don't want to do it right now. That doesn't work when you're on a television series or a movie. If you got that gig and you're working, and you want to draw Superman, and instead, time to get up and go to work. I also think that, and this applies to both of us because of the Paul Newmans and the Danny Thomases and all the guest actors and the Sheldon Leonards and all the people that Angela worked with. I found myself working with, Walt Disney for a few months, and then Alfred Hitchcock for a few weeks, and then Rod Serling for a few months, and then Jimmy Stewart, and then Lucille Ball, and then Jack Benny. And even if you aren't consciously saying to yourself at the age of 6 or 8 or 9, what can I learn from these people? When you're dancing with them, so to speak, you can't help but learn because they're showing you how to do it the
Right.
best way possible.
Yeah.
So, and you can't be an idiot to get those gigs in the first place. So in essence, we really learned how to make television and how to make film from the greatest talents that ever did it. So we had to pick up a few little tricks along the way.
We also learned things behind the camera too, which was interesting. That was cool to do. That's why I had a love for photography, because I was always fascinated by the behind the camera rather being in front of the camera, and the secrets and the magic of movies, which are so different today because you got, CGI, which you never had, instead we had live effects. So, that was another education.
On a quick side note, Bill, I read that you were the first choice to play Eddie Munster in the Munsters, but your parents objected to the makeup requirements. And then years later, you're cast in Babylon 5 wearing lots of prosthetics. Were your parents right about roles without makeup?
Well, that wasn't really exactly how that went down. I was offered the role of Eddie Munster, and myself, my parents, my agent at the time, it just wasn't a good fit for us. I mean, I was really, really bouncing around on some fantastically interesting shows, and we didn't want to be tied down to a series right then, and I didn't want to be a werewolf. I didn't want that makeup. It wasn't just my parents.
Got it.
But Butch is a friend of mine. I guest starred on an early episode of The Munsters. He did a great job as Eddie. He continues to be a great cheerleader for that franchise. And if I had accepted that role, I wouldn't have been able to do Lost in Space. So it really worked out the way it was meant to be. And Butch is the definitive Eddie Munster. As far as Babylon 5, which I did for 5 years, that was a challenge, but that wasn't a decision that was made by my mother or father or whatever. It was made by my wife and I, going, well, this might only go a few weeks, this might not last, but we've got a family here, and you like science fiction, and you don't have to go out of town. Why don't we see what happens? And it was a family decision, and it was a beautifully produced and written show. I never, and the makeup looked great, but I personally never acclimated to the process of putting it on, or even more so taking it off. But when you saw it on television, I mean, they did a great job.
Absolutely.
It's not comfortable sometimes, and people don't even realize it. The third season of Lost in Space, I had not cut my hair. I had to wear a wig. So every morning they had to braid my hair and put it underneath that little half wig, which was not comfortable. And, you just deal with it. And I think it does help you deal with shit in life, where things aren't always comfortable. So, I was 13, 14, whatever. They told me they wanted to chop all my hair off. And I was like, no, this is, what are you? I mean, I'm like the flower child. I can't cut all my hair off. And so we came to that decision of having that little wig thing. But it was uncomfortable. Just like the makeup. I mean, it's just something you do. It's just part of it. It's not all roses and everything.
I'll see your short little wig and raise you a Minbari bone.
I agree. That's much worse. But we did get, of course, it was only for our show, but silver makeup. Bill wore green makeup. That platinum stuff. It's just, that's showbiz.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of things involved with acting in terms of physicality that can be very dangerous as well as uncomfortable. I don't know about you, Ange. Actually, I don't think you've had this experience, but I've been squibbed many, many times, where you're shot, where you're blown up by a shotgun, or you're blown up by I've had a lot of experiences where I was squibbed, and blown up and killed. And that is a very unsettling experience too. But it's all part of high diddly D, an actor's life for me.
Show business.
I felt like I was drowning. I couldn't get air with when we were in Beyond the Poseidon Adventure.
That's scary.
That was a whole chapter.
Well, I want to get to Lost in Space, and I'd love to know what your initial impressions were of the show, how you auditioned and landed the roles of Penny and Will.
Well, you'll have to read our book.
That's right.
That's
because
a great
that's
answer.
all in there. Lost and Found in Space too. It is in there. We wrote a whole chapter on that, didn't we, Bill?
We did indeed, my dear. We did indeed. And I actually think you are wise and fabulous to remind us that that's kind of why we're here. So yeah, let's not, as Jonathan Harris would say, don't give it away, Angelino. Don't give it away.
My nickname. That's what he called me, Angelino. That and many more secrets are in our book.
Speaking of the book, Lost and Found in Space came out originally in 2016, but this year you re-released the book and updated an expanded version. Where did the idea for the book originally come from? How did the two of you get together to collaborate, and what can fans expect?
Well, the first version is really dramatically different from the new revised expanded edition. There's over 925 photographs in the new version, and there are over 350 pages. And in the new version, the expanded blast off edition, we both really decided to tell the secrets that, and I'm not talking about lascivious stuff, but the real stories that hadn't been shared for 50 some years. The first book, which they've both been labors of love, but the first book was done because it was the 50th anniversary. There were a lot of tribute things planned for the series. The studio was getting the cast together for various anniversary celebration promotional things, and it just seemed like a natural thing for us to do. We had access to a lot of photographs that had never been seen before, and so the first edition of the book was more or less a scrapbook of photographs with some remembrances from us. The second edition, the expanded edition of the book, is much more of a book in terms of word content, and another twice as many photographs. It's very different.
Yeah, we were privy to the CBS archives, and we also discovered a lot of our own personal pictures. And what was so interesting, I think, about it is it was written during the first lockdowns of the pandemic. So it was not like we were like too busy to do anything. Mm-hmm. We were, able to be on Zooms constantly and, email and all that. And that's how it was written. And the things that came out were things that are remembered when you can step back and go, really reflect. And you're not too involved in your outwardly world. So that was kind of interesting, I thought. We remembered so much stuff, especially Bill, who has a brain like an elephant. That's a compliment. He really remembers so much, and a lot of that kind of jogs my memory, when he remembers things. So I was like thrilled about the pictures because I love photographs, and I think they speak 1,000 words or 10,000 words or whatever the saying is. So that was really, really fun. But this is a big, thick book. I got it right here. Here it is. See? Oh, it's so heavy because it's so big. There it is. And it's got the purple cover. And you know what? We sign these personally and send them to people if they can buy it on my website, angelacartwrightstudio.com.
You want a holiday gift idea?
Yep.
There might not be anything better than this.
I totally agree with you.
Yep. No house should be without a copy of that. Also, we both, and maybe Angela more so than I, there's two things that are interesting about who we are. We're both keepers of things. Angela has trunks and trunks and trunks full of past stuff, as do I. And we've both been in our individual homes for so long. I've lived in my house for 46 years. And
Wow.
and you've lived in your house, 30 years or something,
30,
right?
No, 38 to 39, probably, yeah.
So in a situation like that, stuff doesn't really disappear. It just gets more stuff put on top of it and shoved in a corner. So when we were doing the expanded edition, and again, as Angela pointed out, we were home quite a lot because shouldn't be running around. So we really broke into this stuff and found these really rare lost in space things, contracts, photographs, memos. It really became much more of an impressive project. And it's also our...
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it's also our story, not just, Lost in Space. We have been connected to each other since we were little kids. It's a very interesting dynamic between the two of us. We were the only people that we went to school with for 4 or 5 years. We were if you check the slots of a relationship, our time together checks a lot of them. And the book is also about, Angela and Bill, not just Will and Penny.
Was there anything surprising you uncovered in looking back at the show that you never knew before through all the photos and nostalgia?
Did anything surprise us? I don't know, but it was like, my parents had passed away. They had a lot of stuff in some boxes. And I said, you know what, I'm home. I am going to do this. I've said I was going to do it for like 3 or 4 years. And so I started to go through some of that stuff. And I came across some original things, and that's what Bill's talking about. I mean, it's there. I hadn't been able to open those boxes for a while without, kind of getting too sad and closing them up again. So it was very cathartic. The whole thing was such an interesting experience and so much more in depth than the first time we went through the book. This time was much more meaningful in a lot of ways. And I think we kind of relived a lot of memories that we have, some good, some bad, Yeah, it was interesting. Oh, and what I wanted to say was so much had happened since that other book because the Netflix show had come out. We were both in it.
Right.
What did that feel like to pass the baton? And all these conventions and so many people that we met that just loved the show and had kind of based their careers around space. When we went to NASA.
Don't give it away.
I know.
Don't give it away.
I won't.
It's all in the book.
There's like just a lot of stories in there that I think everybody can kind of relate to that period of time if you are a boomer, if you are of our age group or the show was of interest to you.
For me, to answer your question, surprises was really how popular Lost in Space was. Because we were working it every week and we were, you look it up and there were like between 30 and 40 million people every week who watched a new episode when it first aired. Well, if you think about those numbers in today's world, it doesn't matter if you're a Seinfeld or whatever, Friends or some kind of Star Trek thing. 40 million people don't watch television shows now because they have 40 million choices. But you didn't have that when Lost in Space aired. So that's why it has resonated from generation to generation, because that first generation, it was a huge deal. Also, let's talk about 1965 through 1968. Come on, it's the pop era, it's pop art, it's the Beatles, it's the beginning of the Vietnam War protest. The globe culturally was changing every 2 weeks. It was a huge time of change. And the series Lost in Space, fashion-wise and story-wise and tone-wise, represents that era like very few things do.
Well, and I think that it had better ratings than Star Trek.
It's much better.
And a theme song written by some obscure composer named Johnny Williams. And that guy is never going to amount to anything, right?
The music for Lost in Space is stunningly brilliant.
All of it. I mean, not just the theme song, but the music that was written for our scenes. You know, Will and John had music. Penny Searching and Bloop had music. You know, the robot had its own music. I mean, that soundtrack is very listenable, I think.
Yeah, the scores for our shows were magnificently composed and beautifully recorded with full orchestras, you know, live on a stage, which is everything, you know, it's a yin and yang, it's a give and take. You know, right now you can do things instantly. You can sit at a keyboard and you can sample strings and horns and things and all of that. You can do it yourself and it'll sound really good and you can get it done in a day. But the difference between bringing in a 64-piece orchestra and having them tune up and get those microphones in place to properly catch the actual swelling dynamics of that many musicians playing together as one, it can't help but be more emotional. It just can't help but be, because there's that many more people putting feeling into it.
This might be in the book also, but I was curious, were your relationships with the cast, Guy, June, Mark, Marta, Jonathan, was it strictly professional, or was there a feeling of family on and off the set?
We were bonded like a true family from the pilot on, and we do go into the book. And I spoke to Mark 2 weeks ago for a long time. We were with Marta a couple of weeks ago. We used to go to dinner with Jonathan and his wife Gertrude, or lunch. No, we were truly bonded as a family. Now, even everyone in the cast, I mean, we got along great. Yeah. During this, I mean, you'll read about it, but yes, we socialized a lot during the years we made the show, and we continued to socialize and get together for not, financial gain, but because we love each other.
And that's not always the case. You know, I happen to be very blessed with Lost in Space and Sound of Music. Of those, they're like my faux family also, even though they're all over the world. That is not always the case. You know, sometimes you come together, you do a show, you know, it's great working with you, you leave, and you don't have an ongoing relationship. You have to work at that. It's like any kind of friendship. But for us, it just was, it was always there. I don't know why. And we were, on the air 3 years. We did a lot more shows. We did more shows, like 6 years of shows in those 3 years from what we did now.
We did 84 episodes of Lost in Space, and the Netflix Lost in Space, which Angela and I are both fans of and have nothing but positive feelings about. They just wrapped up their series of 3 seasons with it's 28 shows.
That was 8 shows this last 3rd season.
84 episodes made up what we consider to be the original Lost in Space is 3 seasons. 84 versus 28. It's quite a sizable difference.
Yeah, things change. I mean, now they're super expensive. The CGI takes almost a year to do on a show like that. It's crazy. It's just different, it's what happens.
We could probably talk for hours on end about your extracurricular projects, writing, music, photography, voiceovers. For our listeners, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your passions outside of acting, specifically the things you're most proud of.
Ladies first.
Okay, well, probably my life revolves around my grandkids right now. I have 4 of them. Love being grandma, and art, which is part of my daily existence. I find it's the thing that brings me the most sanity. I have written some art books. And I just find it to be the thing I enjoy the most, Probably those are my passion projects. I also, have some things in the works that, are just, I'm not ready to talk about yet, but I have to stay busy. That's just who I am. I'm not a sitter around person. I have to keep going and creating, and that's just who I am. Okay, awesome. Bill, you're up. Bill Mumy.
Well,
I might be disappointed, Bill, if you don't say fish heads. So
actually, well, okay.
Oh yeah.
I started playing guitar when I was 10, and you can see that from the pilot of Lost in Space on. There's several episodes of Lost in Space where Will was playing guitar. Music has driven me since then. I think acting has always been something I've enjoyed doing, and I think that I'm pretty good at it. But I don't sit around my house and act for fun. But I'm driven to make music, and I'm always recording and writing, and I've performed as a professional musician for 50 years. So music is really what drives me. And of course, I also have a couple of grandchildren now, and that's a blessing and a joy. Barnes and Barnes, you mentioned Fish Heads. Yes, over the last 48 years, Barnes and Barnes, a novelty duo, has released 9 albums, and the most current one, called Pancake Dream, was released on November 5th from Demented Punk Records. And so that's fresh and available right now from Demented Punk Records. I'm a producer on the long-running Ancient Aliens television series on the History Channel. Before we got on this Zoom, I was just watching a rough cut of an episode and giving notes on the first 6 acts for that. So I'm always writing, I'm always making music, I'm always recording, and life is weird, but I'm lucky to be able to have the space within my own home to stretch out and get things done.
Excellent. Well, that's all the questions I had for you guys today. Thank you both for taking the time to speak with me. Such a fan, and we'll definitely need to get a copy of this book.
Yeah, we've been filling orders for a lot of wives that know their husbands love the show, and a lot of husbands that say, oh, my wife loved it. It's just cool. I mean, it is really cool to be a part of somebody's memories, and they're good memories. And who doesn't want to have good memories right now, So you go.
We've been away from it and never really away from it for so long that it's objective for us to understand. Lost in Space made and makes a lot of people happy. So we create something and it makes people happy, and that's a good thing.
That's a real good thing. That makes us happy, that we make you happy.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you again, both of you. Happy holidays.
Yes, same to you. Here's to Happy New Year, too.
Lost and Found in Space, the expanded edition, is 352 pages filled with over 900 photos and loaded with all kinds of personal stories and memories from Angela and Bill, our featured guests this month. If you or anyone you know is a fan of the original 1960s television show, Lost in Space, and science fiction in general, this book is an absolute must-have. You can grab a copy today at ncpbooks.com. That's N as in Nancy, C as in Charlie, P as in Paul, books.com. And you can get Angela and Bill to autograph a copy for you at angelacartwrightstudio.com. Most importantly, be sure to revisit all 3 amazing seasons of Lost in Space, streaming right now on Hulu. Before we close out another edition of Everything Zen, let's check back in with Amber for some fun facts of the naughty kind here in the month of December.
Hiya friends, Fun Facts Guru Amber here. This holiday season, I have just one question for you fans. Have you been naughty or have you been nice? If you've been nice, you have nothing to worry about. However, if you've been naughty, then you better watch out, because Krampus will find you. Our version of Krampus made his first appearance in 2009 for the Grimm Fairy Tales Holiday Special after a brainstorming session by Ralph and Joe. He showed no mercy, and many died due to their Scrooge-like attitudes, which has been a staple since then. Since then, he's had 10-plus appearances, one every holiday season, with his latest in our upcoming 2021 holiday special. So what makes our Krampus different from the legend? He started out pretty evil, but eventually he became our Christmas Carries. I wonder if they're related. He does rock the iconic horns and has this grim smile. Instead of using other minions to serve his bidding, the multiple mouths he has on his chest can come off and rip you to shreds. Spoiler, it'll happen in the 2021 issue. So anytime you Zenescope fans think about unsubscribing to our comics and merch, just remember I personally know Krampus and may or may not have him on speed dial. Happy holidays to our wonderful fans, and we'll see you in 2022, if you survive Krampus.
Like a great gift that's all wrapped up, that'll do it for this edition of Everything Zen. A very special thanks to Amber and Joe, as well as our featured guests, Angela Cartwright and Bill Mumy. I'm your host, Mark Sells. Thank you for listening. And laying his finger aside his nose and giving a nod up the chimney, he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." Merry Christmas and happy holidays, everyone. We'll see you all again next month in the new year, right here on Everything Zen.